Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with 16 indefinable orchestral works I couldn't live without. I mean, there's no way to categorize them as a particular genre. They just are what they are. I mean, you could stuff them in some sort of, loosely collected something or other, I suppose, but I would prefer to let them have their own individual character. And, you can come up with your own list of indefinable orchestral works because there's a lot of them. They're just a lot of pieces. They have a name, they have a something, and there's nothing like it. And it just is what it is. And we have to take it from there. So without further ado, let's get to it, shall we? You'll see what I mean when we talk about the pieces. Hindemith, concert music for strings and brass. Well, it's a concert music. There were a bunch of composers who called things simply concert music or music for something or other, but it's concert music for strings and brass. It's two movements. It follows no predetermined form, and it's wonderful. And there's a whole bunch of concert music pieces that Hindemith wrote. Well, there are like 3 or 4 of them. But this is the big one. This is the biggie. And it's brilliant, and it's enjoyable, and it's got some great tunes in it. Oh, it's terrific. Absolutely terrific. And it also has some of those strange fourth-based harmony things that make Hindemith sound kind of peculiar to modern ears. But oh my goodness, it's a masterpiece. So there you go. Bartok, music for strings, percussion, and Celesta. Now, this is really, it's effectively a symphony, but Bartók would never call something a symphony. I mean, he was allergic to that, being part of that sort of Germanic orchestral tradition. And it's written for an extraordinary group of instruments, double string orchestra that's antiphonal. They go left, they go right. They're, doing all that stuff. And then with the timpani and percussion in the middle and a piano and a celesta. And wow, and a harp, and it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. It begins with a fugue, then there's a sonata allegro movement and a rondo finale. I mean, the forms are all classical, but he wouldn't call it a symphony. God forbid he should call it a symphony, and it's fabulous. And it is what it is. It's a music for strings, percussion, and celesta. There ain't nothing else like it in the repertoire. Third, Rachmaninoff, his symphonic dances. There are quite a few pieces actually called symphonic dances, or some sort of dance something or other. But this is the king of symphonic dance pieces. His third symphony has 3 movements. And you might want to say that this is almost similar to that because it has 3 movements. But none of the movements are in sonata form. They're all in dance forms for the most part, which is ABA, simple forms with, middle section. But they're so rich. Thematically, they're so rich. There's so much going on, and the orchestration is so beautiful. And it's a wonderful work because Rachmaninoff, it was his last major piece. And he wrote it and he said, boy, I didn't think I fired off my last shot with this one. I didn't think it would come out that well. And it did. It's a great masterpiece. It's right up there with the Paganini Rhapsody and the other things that he did toward the end of his life. He was never truly comfortable in classical forms. And so the most wonderful thing about this is that he finally, at the end of his life, said, screw it. I'm just going to write whatever comes out. And what came out was really, really special. Schoenberg, 5 pieces for orchestra. Well, that's what they are. 5 pieces for orchestra. Each one has a title. Each one is a little different. It has experimental music. Mahler professed not to understand what was going on in it at all, but was fascinated by it. And it is fascinating. They are not atonal in his 12-note style yet. They are written in what they call free atonality, which, is there a difference? Well, there is a difference. The difference is the use of counterpoint, basically. These are not contrapuntal works. They're more chord things than line things. In fact, there's a whole movement, the changing chord, which has no melody at all. It's just drifting harmonies that slowly morph one into the next. Really a remarkable piece of music and a landmark in musical aesthetics that is indescribable, but gave birth to a series of imitations or inspirations, as we shall see. Zelenka. Let's go back to the Baroque. Now, Baroque stuff tends to be pretty well defined. It's either a dance suite, which can be called a partita or a something, but it's a dance suite, or it's a concerto if it's orchestral. One or the other, or a sinfonia, maybe, which is, introduction to something like an overture. That's what you get. And those things are based on really well-known, tried and true formulas. Unless you're Zelenka. If you're Zelenka, you write the Hipocondrie A7, the hypochondriac. This is a single movement thing that, a hypochondriac doesn't necessarily mean somebody who is obsessive about their health. It can mean someone who is consumed with melancholy, which is probably more appropriate for this particular music. It sounds like a Baroque tango. I'm not kidding. Go listen to it. It sounds like a Baroque tango. There is absolutely nothing like it in the world literature of music. It's a strange, individual, wonderful creation from a strange individual and wonderful composer. Really splendid. His orchestral music is just very, very sparse. I mean, he wrote capriccios, 5 of them for orchestra. There's a symphony, there's a concerto, and there's this thing. And that about sums it all up. It's splendid. And so is all of his orchestral music, which you should hear. Bloch, Ernest Bloch. 4 episodes for chamber orchestra. Oh, these are so much fun. I mean, you have no idea how much fun. They each have characteristic titles. One of them is obsessive. It's the same little motive repeated over and over and over and throughout the orchestra. And the finale, the last movement, which is called Chinese. And you won't be able to get it out of your head. It's almost minimalist, these pieces. They're so imaginative and fanciful. And there's no reason why each one does what it, they do what they say they're going to do, but it's such an odd collection of things. You have the obsessive one, the Chinese one, there's 2 others in there. Oh my goodness. Give this a listen. You're going to be hooked. I mean, it's such a brilliant and adorable piece of music. Then Ludwig Irgens Jensen. Irgens Jensen is a wonderful Norwegian composer who wrote very little music, orchestral music, again. He wasn't comfortable writing symphonies. He did write one, but whether it has a finale or not is sort of, an open issue. But he did write a piece that was, it was based on incidental music. It's incredibly lovely. He called it Partita Sinfonica, a symphonic partita. A partita, like I said, is like a dance suite. This is not a dance suite. It just, in this case, means work in several movements. And it ends with a beautiful andante. These movements are basically free in form, in simple forms for the most part. And it's one of those pieces that, it's always been out there. It's been recorded a few times. Most people don't know it. Get to know it. You owe it to yourself. You will not be sorry. Next, Haydn, the 7 last words of the Savior on the cross, the original orchestral version. What is that thing? I mean, it was written for a very specific purpose, for, Good Friday service, where you had a whole orchestra sitting around waiting for something to do. And it begins with an introduction, and then there are 7 sermons followed by 7 adagios, slow movements, adagio or largo, they're all slow, and then a final earthquake to slap you around and bring you back to consciousness. It was, in Haydn's day, possibly his most popular work because of its evidently spiritual quality. But there is, again, it's totally sui generis. There is no other work like it in the entire 18th century, or after, for that matter. And no other composer could pull off 7 slow movements. Actually, the introduction is also a slow movement, and then that final earthquake, which is only like 2 minutes long. Really an extraordinary piece. And, it's known more for its version for string quartet, which is an abomination. I mean, Haydn approved it, but, you got to hear the orchestral original. It's just fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Next, Webern, follower of Schoenberg, his 6 pieces for orchestra, opus 6. He also did a later group of pieces for orchestra, or 5 pieces for orchestra, but this is the fun one. This is expressionist horror music. Totally expressionist horror music. Creepy, teeny tiny little pieces, except for the massive funeral march in the middle. And wow, it's powerful stuff. It's fun to listen to, and short. 12 minutes or something for all 6 of them. They're tiny, tiny little gems of total nightmare. Wonderful stuff. Fun to listen to. I mean, I tell you, it's fun to listen to music that's horrifying. It really is, because it's so horrifying. What can I say? Martinu, Estampes, his Prince, his last major orchestral work. It is full of that sort of hallucinatory vigor. The only way to describe this music is Martinu is incredibly rhythmic. His music is always full of syncopated rhythms that float over the bar lines of the music. It's just wonderful. But at the same time, it's very dreamy and extraordinarily evocative. Usually these pieces are coupled with the parables, which he wrote at about the same time, which have more clear programmatic intent, and also the frescoes of Piero della Francesca. They all kind of go together as these 3-movement sets of orchestral pieces. But 2 of them are, like I said, more clearly programmatic. And these prints are whatever they are. And gosh, they're magical. Absolutely magical. Barber, his essays for orchestra, numbers 1 through 3. These pieces don't get the credit they deserve. Everyone says, oh yeah, essay for orchestra. If Barber had been more popular, or if Americans cared about their own music, which they don't, the Barber essays could have very well invented a new genre, a new form, the essay for orchestra. It's a wonderful concept, a wonderful name, and he wrote 3 of them. Numbers 1 and 2 are pretty well known. 3 is very, very little known, and it's the most modernistically sounding of all of them. But all 3 of them are splendid. They're all quite different from each other, but it's basically concerned with taking an idea and working with it in an abstract kind of way. It's not symphonic in the sense of multi-movement piece with. They are wonderful, absolutely wonderful. It's a pity that the challenge of these works wasn't taken up by other composers, because there could be an entire population of wonderful essays for orchestra. I mean, then you could have your master's thesis for orchestra and your doctoral dissertation for orchestra. But, just begs the question, doesn't it? But these are splendid, splendid works that deserve far more acclaim than they get, even though they're played fairly reasonable. At least the first one gets played once in a while. Jonas Kokkonen, wonderful Finnish composer. He's famous for writing, the Last Temptations, this big opera about a miserable preacher in Scandinavia who has a terrible life, and his symphonies, especially the 3rd and the 4th, which are absolutely lovely. His cello concerto, his requiem. There's some other pieces, very, very beautiful. He began as a serialist, but eventually evolved his own sort of tonal, modal, post-Sibelian style. And one of the works in that style, it's a short work, it's like 15 minutes, 12 minutes, something like that, are his symphonic sketches. And that's what they are. They are just 3 pieces of music in that late style of his, which is incredibly haunting. There's an austerity and sort of visionary desolation to it. It's a lot like the Sibelius of the 4th Symphony, only with modern resources, more percussion, more coloristic stuff going on. Really an extraordinary piece of music, but abstract, and it's symphonic sketches. It doesn't fit into any other category. Then Joaquin Turina, Danzas fantásticas. Oh my goodness. What a great piece. Nobody pays attention to it anymore. Sometimes you hear the orgia, the finale, dum ba da 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 dum da 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 dum ba da dum bum bum ba da dum bum bum ba dum bum. Oh, it's just wonderful. Absolutely fantastic dances. What is a fantastic dance? I have no freaking clue, but I believe that these are them. These are definitely fantastic dances. I wish this piece were played more often. There's just so much beautiful music out there, and we are suffering from having to hear the same crap over and over and over and over and over. It makes me crazy. Okay, Delius, A Song of the High Hills. Well, it is kind of a symphonic poem. It's not a symphonic poem about anything in particular. It has a wordless chorus and soloists who just vocalize. Delius wrote tone poems, essentially. I mean, most of what he wrote orchestrally. But they're usually pretty clear tone poems in the sense of, you know what he's describing. And here it's his typical, the North Country. It's, up there somewhere. And it's just an incredibly haunting and beautiful work for a large orchestra about wide open spaces and nature and all of those things. And it has no discernible relationship to classical forms. And it's not a symphonic poem in the sense that it has some sort of concrete story or program behind it. It's just a vision of nature. And it's an extraordinary work. Absolutely, again, sui generis. It has no antecedents, particularly, that we could point to. And it had no successors, really, either, I don't think. It's as special as music gets. Then we have, of course, Miroslav Kabeláč. We've talked about this. Mystery of Time, subtitled Passacaglia for Orchestra. Ooh, is this a great piece? Wow. Exactly what the mystery of time is, we have no idea. It doesn't, again, tell any particular story. It's an abstract work with a title. And it's a big 20-minute long extravaganza for full orchestra that builds from an absolutely whispery opening to an enormous, powerful, grand climax before ebbing away. Really an amazing masterpiece of 20th century music. And I was very happy when we initially discussed, because there was a new recording that came out on Superfun, that so many of you were as enraptured with the work as I was. It's a masterpiece, an extraordinary piece. And last but not least, of course, the Berg three pieces for orchestra, because we did Schoenberg and Webern. We've got to cover the second Viennese school, don't we? Berg's three pieces for orchestra are even more of an expressionist nightmare than Webern's are, particularly the finale, which is a march that uses Mahler's sledgehammer from the Sixth Symphony. Wow, is it powerful. The piece is again, it's three pieces. They're just three pieces. Instead of 5 pieces or 6 pieces. In this case, we have 3 pieces, but they're bigger. They're longer than Schoenberg's or Berg's. They're more extended, and they are scored for an enormous orchestra, and they are full of these rich, decadent, juicy, luscious, wonderfully voluptuous sounds until you get to the final sledgehammer that just chops it off at the climax of screaming horror. It's actually the last movement. If you know Edvard Munch's painting, The Scream, and you listen to the end of this piece, you got it. I mean, that is that painting and sound. It's a scream. It's thud. Absolutely tremendous. So there you have it, my friends. 16 indefinable orchestral works that I can't live without. And like I said, there are thousands of these suckers. I mean, hundreds of them, tons of them. Works that just don't fit into any particular category for orchestra that are amazing to listen to. Let me see your list. I'll bet you've got tons of them just ready to rock. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me. Take care.